You might know Dennis Edwards as the lead singer of The Temptations, but did you hear about the tragic circumstances surrounding his passing? His death shocked the music community, but what followed was even more disturbing: allegations that his wife abused him before he died. Did Dennis Edwards suffer from elder abuse? Recent sources and documents reveal a startling story about his life and death, and now, his daughter has finally confirmed these rumors. Before we talk about the rumors surrounding Dennis Edwards' personal life and death, let's take a step back and explore Stevie's early life and remarkable career that set the foundation for his legendary status in the music world. Early years and career. Dennis Edwards was born in Fairfield, Alabama, just 8 miles from Birmingham, to Reverend Dennis Edwards Sr. and Odessa Fuller. He began singing at the tender age of 2 in his father's church, where his passion for music first took root. When he was about 10 years old, the Edwards family relocated to Detroit, Michigan. There, he continued to sing in his father's church, eventually rising to the position of choir director. As a teenager, Edwards joined a gospel vocal group known as the Mighty Clouds of Joy. His musical education expanded as he studied piano and composition at the Detroit Conservatory of Music. Inspired by the legendary Sam Cooke's transition from gospel to secular music, Edwards decided to take a bold step himself. In 1961, he formed his own soul and jazz group, Dennis Edwards and the Firebirds, eager to explore the vibrant world of secular music despite his mother's disapproval. She forbade him from singing or listening to secular music. In 1961, Edwards recorded his first single for the little-known Detroit label International Soulville Records, titled "I Didn't Have To, But I Did," B.W. Johnny on the Spot. However, his journey took an unexpected turn when he was drafted into the U.S. Army. From January 1961 to December 1963, Edwards served as a field artilleryman, spending much of his enlistment stationed in Europe. He rose to the rank of Specialist 4th Class while serving with Headquarters Battery, 2nd Howitzer Battalion, 35th Artillery, 7th Army. After his military service, Edwards's musical career took a significant turn. In 1966, with the help of renowned bassist James Jamerson, he auditioned for the legendary Motown Records and was signed, although he was initially placed on retainer. Edwards had aspirations of becoming a solo artist, but fate had other plans. He was assigned to join the Contours after their lead singer, Billy Gordon, fell ill. A year later, while performing as the opening act for The Temptations, Edwards caught the attention of Temptations members Eddie Kendricks and Otis Williams, who were contemplating replacing their own lead singer, David Ruffin, a personal friend of Edwards. The Temptations years. In 1967, Dennis Edwards made the bold decision to leave the Contours, and once again found himself placed back on retainer with Motown. He had been eagerly anticipating a fresh start with Holland Dozier Holland, who promised to sign him to their new label, Invictus Records. However, his career trajectory shifted dramatically in late June 1968 when he was drafted into The Temptations, who had recently fired their lead singer David Ruffin. Ruffin, sensing his impending departure from the group, had tipped Edwards off about the situation, which helped ease any guilt Edwards might have felt about stepping into his friend's shoes. The revamped lineup of The Temptations made its debut in July 1968 at the Forum in Los Angeles. For the first half of the concert, the audience was treated to performances by the 4 original members of the group, while Edwards took the stage for the second half. The official introduction of Edwards as a member of The Temptations took place on July 9, 1968, during a performance in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania. The moment was not without drama. Ruffin, trying to reclaim his place in the group, crashed the stage during Edwards's lead vocal on the classic hit "Ain't Too Proud to Beg," earning a rousing response from the audience. This kind of interference persisted for about a month until, according to Edwards, the group ultimately decided to dismiss him, with the promise of a solo deal from Motown, and rehired Ruffin. However, fate intervened when Ruffin failed to show up for his return engagement in Gaithersburg, Maryland, the following night. As a result, Edwards was permanently retained, and the Temptations refused to consider bringing Ruffin back into the fold any further. Edwards' first album with the Temptations, Live at the Copa, was recorded during their triumphant return to the iconic Copacabana nightclub. The group soon entered a new musical era with their next studio album, Cloud 9, which marked a departure towards psychedelic soul, spearheaded by producer Norman Whitfield. The title track soared to number 6 on the U.S. pop charts and earned the group a Grammy Award for Best Rhythm and Blues Group Performance, Vocal or Instrumental, in 1969. The success of Cloud 9 was followed by a series of hit singles including I Can't Get Next to You, Ball of Confusion, That's What the World Is Today, Superstar, Remember How You Got Where You Are, and the iconic Papa Was a Rollin' Stone. During the recording of the iconic song Papa Was a Rollin' Stone, a notable tension arose between Dennis Edwards and the group. According to Otis Williams, Edwards was angered by the song's opening verse, which recounts a significant personal loss. It was the 3rd of September. That day I'll always remember, 'cause that was the day that my daddy died. Williams claimed that Edwards was upset because his father had reportedly passed away on that very date. However, Edwards contested this account, clarifying that his father's death actually occurred on the 3rd of October. Despite the disagreement, the single achieved remarkable success, charting at number 5 on the R&B charts and winning 4 Grammy Awards in 1972. As time progressed, creative tensions began to surface between the Temptations and their producer, Norman Whitfield. Many members of the group felt that Whitfield was placing excessive emphasis on the musical composition rather than allowing their vocal talents to shine through. This conflict became particularly apparent with the song Masterpiece, released in 1973. In response to these ongoing disputes, the Temptations decided to move forward with a new producer, Jeffrey Bowen, for their 1975 album, A Song for You. This collaboration proved fruitful, yielding 2 number-1 R&B singles, Happy People in 1974 and Shaky Ground in 1975. However, Bowen's production style began to favor Edwards' lead vocals, often at the expense of the other members of the group. According to Williams, Bowen would frequently neglect to record background vocals or would mix them at a significantly lower volume than Edwards' parts. During the recording sessions, Bowen took Edwards aside and reportedly told him, "You don't need to be with them guys. I can cut you into things, Dennis. You could be bigger on your own." While Bowen denied any ill intentions, claiming that the album's production schedule had fallen behind, the comment raised eyebrows among the other members of the Temptations. Around this time, Edwards' personal struggles began to take a toll on his professional life. His cocaine use had escalated, leading to him missing rehearsals and team meetings. In 1976, as the Temptations were in the process of transitioning from Motown to Atlantic Records, Otis Williams made the difficult decision to fire Edwards due to what he described as an intolerable attitude. Attempted solo career, second stint with the Temptations. After parting ways with the Temptations, Dennis Edwards found himself still bound by his contract with Motown. Determined to pursue a solo career, he negotiated with the label while simultaneously recording an album. Unfortunately, the deal he hoped for fell through, and his solo album was ultimately shelved, leaving him at a professional crossroads. In the interim, Edwards took a job with his uncle's company in Cleveland, where he worked laying concrete driveways. In 1980, Edwards got a second chance when he rejoined the Temptations after his replacement, Louis Price, departed from the group. Otis Williams made it clear to Edwards that any nonsense would not be tolerated this time around. The Temptations then re-signed with Motown, releasing the studio album Power in 1980. The album's lead single, also titled Power, featured Edwards back on lead vocals and peaked at number 11 on the R&B charts, although it struggled to break into the top 40 on the pop charts. With Edwards back in the fold, Motown sought to capitalize on his return by orchestrating a reunion album in 1982 that included David Ruffin and Eddie Kendricks, alongside the current lineup. This much-anticipated reunion tour kicked off in March 1982, just a week before the release of the album Reunion. The project showcased Edwards prominently, featuring him on several tracks, while Ruffin lent his voice to one. As the tour progressed, Edwards reconnected with Ruffin, and the two indulged in cocaine binges during their off hours. This rekindling of their friendship, however, led to troubling behaviors. Williams noted that Edwards often arrived late or appeared inebriated from late-night escapades. The tour continued until mid-November, wrapping up at the Westbury Music Fair, but it became increasingly apparent that Edwards' personal struggles were affecting his professional commitments. In 1983, the Temptations released another studio album titled Surface Thrills. That same year, they participated in a memorable Battle of the Bands against the Four Tops during the television special Motown 25, Yesterday, Today, Forever. Edwards and Four Tops frontman Levi Stubbs exchanged performances of their respective groups' hit songs, and the segment was so successful that it led to a worldwide tour dubbed TNT, which lasted 3 years. However, by the end of 1983, Edwards began missing shows and rehearsals, prompting the Temptations to make the difficult decision to replace him with Ollie Woodson. Solo career, third stint with the Temptations. In the spring of 1984, Motown reignited Dennis Edwards' solo career with the release of Don't Look Any Further, a captivating duet featuring Siedah Garrett. The song quickly became a hit, propelling the album of the same name to a remarkable number, second position on the R&B charts. The album also produced notable radio singles like You're My Aphrodisiac and Just Like You. When interviewed by the New York Daily News about the possibility of a second album, Edwards expressed his desire to cover Otis Redding's classic Try a Little Tenderness and to collaborate on a duet with the legendary Aretha Franklin. In 1985, Edwards released his follow-up album, Coolin' Out, which featured his rendition of Redding's song and included a moderately successful title track. However, despite the positive reception of his solo efforts, Edwards' path to a sustained comeback remained complicated. During this time, Temptations member Ron Tyson caught Edwards performing at a nightclub in Philadelphia and saw potential for a reunion, but discussions about Edwards rejoining the group ultimately stalled. In 1987, tensions within the Temptations led to the firing of Ollie Woodson after he repeatedly arrived late for performances. The group, seeking to stabilize their lineup, brought Edwards back once again. They recorded the album Together Again, which included the hit single, I Wonder Who She's Seeing Now. This resurgence marked another chapter in Edwards' dynamic career, but it also highlighted the ongoing struggles within the group. Despite this comeback, Edwards would leave the Temptations for a third and final time to reunite with David Ruffin and Eddie Kendricks, two fellow alumni of the iconic group. In 1989, after Edwards' departure, Woodson was once again brought in to take his place. That same year, a significant milestone was reached. Edwards was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a member of the Temptations' Ruffin, Kendricks, and Edwards. Beginning in 1989, Dennis Edwards hit the road once more, touring and recording alongside fellow Temptations alumni David Ruffin and Eddie Kendricks. They creatively branded themselves as the former leads of the Temptations, a nod to their illustrious past, while also signaling a new chapter in their careers. Their unique combination of voices and shared history drew significant interest, prompting David Tucker, a documentary filmmaker, to profile their journey. This culminated in the release of the MTV documentary Original Leads of the Temptations, which explored their experiences and the enduring legacy of the group. Throughout 1991, Edwards, Ruffin, and Kendricks embarked on an extensive tour across Europe. As they navigated the logistics of their performances, the trio operated without a dedicated manager, which necessitated Ruffin's role in collecting concert proceeds from local promoters at each venue. This arrangement proved to be both practical and challenging, especially when it came to financial matters. After wrapping up their European tour, Ruffin found himself in Philadelphia, carrying a briefcase filled with $40,000 in British travelers' checks, a significant sum that Edwards and Kendricks eagerly urged him to wire transfer to them. Tragically, on June 1, 1991, Ruffin's life was cut short when he suffered a fatal overdose at a crack house in Philadelphia. He was pronounced dead later that day at a nearby hospital. At the time of his death, the briefcase containing the traveler's checks had not yet been recovered. The heartache deepened over a year later, in October 1992, when Eddie Kendricks passed away from lung cancer in Birmingham, Alabama. Before Kendricks' untimely death, he and Edwards had collaborated on an unreleased album, a project that held great significance for both artists. Among their works was a dance club track titled "Get It While It's Hot," recorded in 1990 for A&B Records. The track was laid down at Frederick Knight's recording studio in their hometown of Birmingham, Alabama, and was produced and engineered by Alan Stewart. Did Temptations' Dennis Edwards die from elder abuse? Detroit native. Dennis Edwards, the Grammy-winning member of the legendary Temptations, passed away in 2018 at the age of 74 in Chicago. His wife revealed to the media that he died from complications related to meningitis, which is an acute inflammation of the protective membranes covering the brain and spinal cord. However, then, Chicago police spokeswoman Laura Amazaga stated, "It's an open and ongoing investigation at this time." Edwards passed away on a Thursday at Rush University Medical Center in Chicago, where he had been living in a luxury high-rise on Michigan Avenue. While his wife cited meningitis as the cause of death, a spokeswoman for the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office indicated that an autopsy had been performed and that the agency is still investigating the manner and cause of death. Compounding the tragedy, an emergency protection order filed in January by the Health Care Consortium of Illinois, which investigates elder abuse cases for the state, alleged that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee suffered from neglect and abuse during his final months, allegedly at the hands of his wife, Brenda Edwards, who is 60. In a statement released Tuesday to the Detroit News through a publicist, Brenda Edwards firmly denied the allegations. "I loved Dennis, and we were married for 18 years. I would have never done anything to harm him. These allegations are false and defamatory and will be proven as such. Until this is all over, I have no further comment." Dennis Edwards fell ill in 2017, reportedly from meningitis, and was in and out of the hospital, although one of his daughters, Isa Pointer Stewart, who was appointed the singer's power of attorney, said she never heard his doctors say he had meningitis. In late 2017, Brenda Edwards relocated Dennis from the St. Louis area to a luxury high-rise apartment building on Michigan Avenue in Chicago, according to family members. During his time there, Edwards underwent a rehabilitation program at the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab to remove a ventilator he had been dependent on for much of the year. After his release from rehab and return home, an investigation was launched by Adult Protective Services following a complaint initiated by Edwards himself, as noted by Pointer Stewart on Tuesday. On January 12th, a protection order was filed against Brenda Edwards on Dennis's behalf in Cook County Circuit Court by Bella Greer of the Health Care Consortium of Illinois. Brenda Edwards appeared at a scheduled hearing regarding the case, but a clerk at the court mentioned that if the person for whom the petition was filed dies, the order would be vacated. Due to privacy laws related to Adult Protective Services, Greer told the Detroit News that she couldn't comment directly on the case, but confirmed that her name was listed on the order. The protection order included allegations that Brenda attempted to suffocate Edwards by holding his head face down on the bed and that he had been deprived of his hearing aids. According to the order, Edwards was described as bedbound and immobile. It also outlined a history of abuse by the respondent, Brenda Edwards, and mandated the return of his cell phone, hearing aids, and iPad. The order further stated that Dennis was removed from the residence regarding medical issues. Edwards' daughters, Denise Edwards and Pointer Stewart, expressed their reluctance to comment on the abuse allegations due to the ongoing police investigation. Pointer Stewart, who was in Miami on tour with the Pointer sisters, her mother, Ruth Pointer, married Edwards in 1977, shared that she and her siblings felt isolated from their father during this difficult time. Currently, funeral arrangements for Dennis Edwards are pending and are being managed by Baucom's Precious Memories Services funeral home in Jamestown, Missouri. Relatives of Dennis Edwards in Detroit are hoping to organize a memorial service to provide the community an opportunity to pay their respects to the beloved former Motown star. Edwards grew up in Detroit after his family moved from Alabama when he was just 7 years old. Leon Fuller, Edwards' first cousin, expressed his frustration about not being able to reach him. He claimed that Brenda Edwards wouldn't let me know where he was. He questioned, why would she move him to Chicago? At 6 feet 4 inches tall, Edwards had a commanding presence, both in stature and personality, matched by his powerful voice. Friends and family are stunned to learn that he was left completely helpless in his final days. Fuller received a call from a nurse in January informing him that Edwards was hospitalized. I went over to see him. He smiled at me, Fuller recalled, adding, I hate the way he went out. Detroit singer Betty Lavette also shared her disbelief, recalling a recent encounter with Edwards. He told me he was ill, but he looked fine. I just can't imagine him ending up in this kind of situation, she said. Pointer Stewart reflected on her fond memories of her father. He was extremely funny. He gave me this incredible voice and this larger-than-life presence. Both my son and I have that, she shared. I hope we can give him what he deserves. How do you remember Dennis Edwards and his contributions to music? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more insightful content about Dennis Edwards and his incredible journey.